Alhamdulillah. Let's start our program. We have quite a few attendees already, and people are joining in. We will soon start a live feed on Facebook. So some people prefer to join there. I suppose while they are connecting with their friends, they want to listen to you. So we have today here Mr. Manzar, who has recently received a Chevening scholarship to study in the UK, and who better than to explain about a Chevening scholarship than somebody who has actually taken that path. So without talking too much, let's get started. Sister Risha, can you give a brief introduction of AMP?
Good evening and Assalamu alaikum everyone. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Okay, so I'll quickly take you through the journey of AMP as an organization. So AMP is operating as a registered NGO in India, USA, UK and Australia, providing platform to all the professionals and volunteers to come forward and serve the society in a better manner. It has completed its 13 years of glorious journey with a significant impact on people, communities and society in general. Furthermore, it envisions to make an impact on 10 million lives by 2030. Its mission is to empower the underprivileged or marginalized sections of the society towards a greater or common good for the society and nation as a whole, with a vision to build a community that is advanced in education, socially progressive, culturally vibrant, politically influential, and economically dynamic. So there are a lot of initiatives and programs that are successfully run by AMP so far. Some of the achievements and their glimpses can be seen here. The first one is the school development program that focuses on the skill development lectures, capacity building of the staff and caregivers, especially the parents, with a huge reach up to 2.8 lakh students with 800 schools connected till date. Next, we have employment assistance cell. It has its own initiatives like we organize job fairs, job drives, and employability trainings, providing employment opportunities to more than 21,000 potential candidates and benefiting more than 17,000 degree holders. Next in line, we have scholarships and self-employment opportunities. So till date, we have more than 800 students have been provided higher education scholarships with more than 860 people orphans getting educated and more than 425 families transformed by offering self-employment assistance. Moving forward, we have AMP's Resource Center that provides services for the better growth and development of the students by providing exclusive career counseling services. Then we have awards and participations. As we all know that these awards are crucial for building any community or an organization. Therefore, MP has awarded hundreds of educationalists till date with a reach up to more than 100 partner NGOs and skill training partners. Moving forward, we have a few more programs, relatively the new ones. So it's a digital era. Therefore, MP has also geared up to take up some peculiar digital initiatives for helping out people through the initiatives like indiazakat.com, where the zakat seekers and givers can come together for the socio-economic transformation of the underprivileged, especially the indiamentors.com, that is a platform where the students are empowered by strengthening their skills, knowledge, and capabilities through proper guidance, mentoring, and support through verified mentors. Then Empower Jobs that has been created to help freshers and those affected by COVID-19 recently. So we provide skill training and employability training programs to such students so that they can be empowered and educationally strengthened. Finally, we would see AMP's reach at ground level. So currently AMP has more than 140 active chapters across 26 states and 16 countries with more than 600 active members, and our online presence is more than 1.25 lakhs and hoping for much more. Now handing over to Mr. Mohammed Saif to please introduce today's speaker for the web talk. Thank you.
Greetings to one and all present over here. Thank you, Ms. Risha, for telling us about the various spectra AMP is working in a wide variety of things. So let us introduce our speaker for whom we are here, and we are absolutely delighted. Our speaker today is Mr. Manzar. He is himself a Chevening Scholar 2021 and he's also an incoming MSc in Evidence-Based Social Intervention and Policy Evaluation at the University of Oxford. Currently working as a lead in research and development at Impact Dash, he's also a founder of Bridge, a student-run initiative at DISS Mumbai, working to channelize scholarship and funds for students facing financial hardships. Previously, he has worked as a development consultant at NABARD Consultancy Services and also a software engineer at Wipro Technologies. His education background includes MSW in livelihoods and social entrepreneurship from Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai, and a Bachelor of Technology in Computer Science from Dehradun Institute of Technology. So without wasting any much further time, I would like to invite Mr. Manjar to tell our attendees today how they can make their dream come true of pursuing higher education in the United Kingdom through the Chevening Scholarship by a Chevening Scholar himself. Over to you, Mr. Manjar.
Thank you so much, sir. If my voice is audible, can I get a thumbs up?
Yes.
All right. Firstly, thank you so much, AMP, for inviting me for the talk. I have prepared a small presentation, and I'll just give you a walkthrough about the entire process of Chevening Scholarship, and also in then I'll be talking about a few other scholarships which you can apply for studying in the UK. In case you have any questions, you can put in the Q&A section as mentioned by the panelists before. Just give me a moment. People want me to switch into Hindi or English, just let me know. I'll try speaking preferably in English only. So yeah, the road to the United Kingdom through the Chevening Scholarship, how exactly can we do that? Mr. Saif has already mentioned about my background, but I would like to just give a brief description of my profile. Why it is important, because I come from a place named Ambikapur. It's a small town in Chhattisgarh. Now, why am I mentioning it? Because I want to emphasize on the fact that coming from a small town also, at times it was considered as like, okay, you are not very accessible to information or higher education, but that's how I feel we change the narrative. So I come from a place named Ambikapur, and I have done my engineering from DIT with specialization in computer science engineering. And my choice was led largely because I was not much aware of different information or different avenues in career. So that's why engineering was the last choice left with me. So while pursuing my engineering, I also was a founding member of an organization named Making a Difference by Being the Difference, which primarily works for environment conservation, river regeneration in the Dehradun Valley. After completing my engineering, I have worked as an engineer with Wipro Technologies. But my rigor for social change started right at the time of my engineering, and then I decided to give it a quit. I decided to quit my job from Wipro, and then I went to pursue my social work degree from Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai, wherein my course was MSW, and the specialization was livelihoods and social entrepreneurship. While pursuing my master's, I came across a few instances where scholarship was a major challenge for students coming from marginalized section. So I also started an initiative named Bridge, which is a completely student-led, student-run initiative in coordination, or I would say in association with the TES administration, which works to channelize funds and money for the students coming from the marginalized section. After pursuing my master's from this, I went ahead to work as a development consultant with NABARD Consultancy Services in New Delhi office. And after working for almost a good amount of time, I decided to move into a different organization named Impact Dash, where I'm currently working as lead research and development. And yeah, I have been selected for the Chevening Scholarship from India this year, and I will be pursuing MSc in Evidence-Based Social Intervention and Policy Evaluation at the University of Oxford, starting in October. Yeah, that's about myself. Moving further, about the Chevening Scholarship, what exactly it is. So Chevening Scholarship is the UK government scholarship program, which is to pursue masters in the UK. So the most important thing here is the master's course in the UK largely is for 9 months to 12 months duration only. So unlike India or other countries, the master courses is for 1 year only. So they fund every master's degree in the United Kingdom. So the detailed information about the courses which are eligible You will find it on the official website of Chevening. You simply type on Chevening official website on the Google, you will be getting a link. Just go over there. They have a very comprehensive list of the courses which are eligible. So if the course is for 2 years of duration or more than 12 months of duration, it's not eligible. Okay. The main focus of Chevening is to develop global leaders. They want to bring up leaders who eventually bring impact into the society. The scholarship is funded by FCDO, which is Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office of the United UK government. That is largely about the Chevening scholarship. Now, what exactly is included in the scholarship? The most important part, university tuition fees. Your entire fees is covered by Chevening if the course is eligible. Now, here's the important point. For MBA courses, there is a cap. For MBA courses, there is a cap that is for £22,000. So, for example, if your MBA course is for £30,000, Chevening, and if you have got the scholarship, so Chevening will be funding only £22,000. All right, the remaining £8,000 has to be funded by you, or the remaining deficit. That is for MBA only. Okay, for every other course, be it law, be it social work, be it engineering, if it's for 1 year of duration, if it's eligible, they fund the entire tuition fee. You get a monthly stipend. Okay, so for city, if you are living in London, this year we are providing around £1,300, and for other cities they provide some close to £1,100. Okay, that's your monthly stipend. From that stipend only, you'll have to manage your accommodation, your travel, your food, and everything. I mean the local travel, and it's decent. You can manage that. Travel costs to UK, the on and on two-way ticket. So from India to London, and also once I have done my studies, if I have to return back to India, they will be taking care of my travel costs. So they book the tickets for your flight, but that's only for one person, not the dependents. Okay. Arrival allowance. The moment you arrive into the UK, they pay some amount for your basic expenditure. For example, booking a cab or paying some small deposit. So close to £600 they pay as an arrival allowance. A departure allowance also. Once you are done with your education and you are about to depart from the country, they will be giving an allowance. That's less. That's close to £150, not in comparison to the arrival allowance. The cost of visa is also covered, so you don't have to pay for the visa. Even the health surcharge, nothing has to be paid. So the cost of visa is also covered into the scholarship. And obviously, Chevening has multiple events, networking events. You have to attend many conferences. So all the travel expenditure will be taken care by Chevening. If you are in London, you won't be paid because all the events usually happen in London. But if you're in any other city, for example, Cambridge or Oxford or Sussex, so whenever you travel, the charge is reimbursed to you. So this is largely which is covered in the Chevening scholarship. The important point was the MBA cap thing. Please note. Okay. Yeah. Further eligibility criteria. First and foremost, you have to be a Chevening eligible. You have to be a citizen of Chevening eligible country. You should be holding a passport. India is eligible, and there are more close to 160 countries which are eligible under the scholarship. You have to return after your course is completed for at least 2 years. That's what is the rule here. So once you're done with your scholarship, once you're done with this course, the stipend will stop, and you'll have to come back to India for at least 2 years. Having at least 2 years of work experience. I also read a question a few minutes back that is part-time internship, field work considered? Yes, it is considered. If you have interned somewhere, if you have worked as a fellow somewhere, if you have even done a voluntary activity, if you have even started an initiative on your own, anything which you have put in your effort into, that is eligible for being counted as a work experience. Okay, so full-time, voluntary, paid, unpaid internship, as long as you are able to justify the work what you have done. Please do not try to lie here because they are very particular about this thing. I'll also talk about this topic in further slides, but do not try to mention something which is false. Okay. So yeah, I hope that is clear. You can mention about part-time, full-time, internship, fellowship, research work, voluntary work, everything is counted as a work experience. So that has to be 2 years. So they calculate the hourly basis. Having an undergraduate degree, so you can compare with 2:1 honors degree from the UK parameters. And most importantly, if you have previously studied in the UK with a scholarship or with the funding of the UK government, you are not eligible. So let's say if you were a Commonwealth scholar, okay, Commonwealth is also from the UK government, then you're not eligible. But if you have received a departmental scholarship or any other scholarship which was specific to college only, not the government, then you are eligible. So please, that has to be taken care of. Yeah. Now, how to apply? The most important part. Firstly, we'll look at the process and the timeline. Okay. So the process is the application open, the online application system. You have to check the eligibility criteria. Once you're eligible, there's a system wherein you have to write few answers. I'll talk about the answer in the next slide. You have to mention your work experience and references. References, you just need to mention the profile name. For example, I had mentioned about my previous colleague, my boss at NABARD. He was my reference. He was my referee. So I just mentioned the name. The reference letter has to be submitted later. Okay. So I also talk about who has to be a reference, who has to be a referee, and what exactly has to be prioritized. The second stage is the interview stage. You have to book your interview slots, upload your biography, and upload the remaining documents which they ask. Okay, so the first round is only about writing applications and mentioning your basic details. And the last stage is the results which usually come out. If you are conditionally selected, or you are reserved in category, or you are unsuccessful. Now, reserve category is usually people who had good profiles, but the seats were limited or the funding were limited, and mostly they cleared it. For example, this year there were few in reserve list, and almost 5 have already been upgraded. Conditionally selected means you have received the scholarship. Now you just need to show them the offer letter from the university. The timeline. It starts on 3rd of August. So for next year's scholarship, this year's scholarship, the applications are open. So 3rd of August, they have started the portal. It will close on 2nd of November 2021. So please just go to the website, look at the FAQs, look at the process, understand the scholarship first, what exactly do they want, and then start applying for it. Interview calls happen in early to mid-February next year. You have to upload your final documents. Now, final documents means your transcripts, your college degrees, your reference letters. So all of it has to be uploaded before the interview, that is February to April, you have the time. And the interviews usually happen from 28th of February to 29th of April, 2022. So this timeline, you can find it on the Chevening website also. Results usually come in early June. This year it was delayed. It eventually, for India, it came on 30th of June, but for other countries, they started sending by mid-June only. Offer deadline, the most important part. While applying for the Chevening scholarship, you do not need to have the offer letter from the university. Please mind it. You just need to mention the 3 universities or 3 courses for which you'll be applying. And one of the question is about the choice of courses that you have to explain. You just need to mention about it. The offer letter from any of the 3 universities needs to be submitted before 14th of July 2022. So assuming you clear, so let's say you clear the interview round and you have got the offer, you just need to upload it before the deadline mentioned, and then you have the offer letter, and then you have the Chevening scholarship confirmed. Okay, so this is the timeline. Now moving further, the online application form. What exactly constitutes the answers? What you have to write. So there are 4 topics on which you have to write a small essay of 500, less than 500 words. The first is leadership. There has to be an answer on leadership. You have to talk about your leadership skills, how exactly you have influenced people, your community in past. Now, when I talk about a leader, it need not be that you have to be the CEO or founder or let's say a politician of some locality. Any person at any point of time who has taken an initiative, somebody who has tried to do something and brought an impact, be it in a small vicinity of circle, be it in just your locality. Okay, so there's no comparison to good leadership or a small leadership. So it has to be something which shows that how you have influenced things around you. Okay, so that is about the first essay. You have to write about your leadership skill and how exactly you have influenced people, and you have to mention your examples here. Okay, there's an approach mentioned in the Chevening website also, how exactly you have to write. So you have to tell what was the situation first, how exactly you assessed it, what was your approach to your that situation, and how exactly your leadership has brought impact. So there are a few approaches. I'll tell in the next slides. Second essay is about the networking. skill. Okay, how exactly you network with people. Now, people often think that networking is all about going to events and knowing people and knowing as many contacts as possible, but that's not it. That's not the only thing about networking. Networking is knowing, building relations and how exactly these relations can eventually help you either bring impact in your life or people's life. So you have to tell how in past, how your work in past has leveraged on a good network. Okay. And then also how exactly you're going to build network in the UK and after your course completion. So understand it this way, it's a two-way process. When you're applying for Chevening, it's not just you who is getting the scholarship, but eventually Chevening also needs to benefit from you. Right? It's very simple. So you will be carrying a badge of Chevening. So tomorrow, whatever work you do, be it good or be it bad, you are carrying a name. So they also look at that way that this person is going to bring impact, and that's why we should invest in this person. Okay. So you have to talk about your networking skill, how you will be establishing relations while being in the UK. The third and most important question, I would say, in my personal opinion, why UK? Why the three courses? Why the three choices? So, in the third point, you have to mention about the three course choice which you are selecting, what you want to pursue, and why is it relevant to your previous experience. So, usually, how it happens, you have to look at the past work you have done, the past education, what you have gained, what is that lacuna, what is that gap which you have identified, and that is something you would like to fill by pursuing this higher education from the UK. That's the approach usually. So you understand these are my three. So you mentioned these are my three choices, of course, and this is why I would like to do it. And you have to sync it with your previous experience. So it cannot be. I did bachelor's in computer science, and now I'm suddenly shifting to I would say social work. So there has to be some connect. The way I connected that, okay, I did engineering. Then I pursued my master's. Sometimes my field experiences were very limited to, I would say people-centered approach, design thinking, but there was a gap, there was a lacuna of evidence-based research. That is why my choice of courses were evidence-based research and social policy. That's how you have to justify it. And I feel this is the most important part. Career plan. Now, as I have previously mentioned, you have to be very clear about how you have to come back to India. That's for sure. Once the course completes, stipend will stop. You cannot survive. You have to come back to India, and that's the rule. So once you're back to India, or once you're back to your host country, what are your goals? What is your short term? What is your long term career plans? And where is Chevening placed into all of this? So if you portray it in a way that, okay, I can do anything on my own, so even Chevening would feel like, then what's the point of having Chevening? So you have to mention, once you have gained this degree, once you have attained this education, once you have built a good network, once you have gained good exposure, once and then you're back to your country, and how exactly you'd like to use all of it into bringing social impact. Okay, and in all of your answers, please make sure to mention where is Chevening placed, how Chevening's network is going to use. For example, I'll give one example. Sorry, it's repetitive. In my essay of career plan, I talked about in my midterm career plan that I would like to work with the government agencies to understand large scale social intervention models. Then I very specifically mentioned that during that process, I'll reach out to previous Chevening alumni who have worked in similar domains and gain from their experiences. So I mentioned this is what I would like to do. And this is how Chevening alumni who have previously worked in the similar domain can keep me informed and can show me the right path. So that's how I show why exactly Chevening is important to me. Okay, so that is how you can sync it with your answers. The role of Chevening in the future plans. This is the most important part. People, please give nice time to this. This is only that needs to be submitted before November, and your answers will be taking multiple drafts. So don't worry if the initial drafts are not that great. Even I had to write 8 to 9 drafts, then I was pretty satisfied. Now, other relevant information, references. Referees can be either academic or professional. I decided to go with one academic, one professional. One was my professor, and as previously mentioned, one was my boss from my previous organization, that was Napan. The person should be able to comment on your suitability, your ability, So be very selective about it. Not that it decides everything, but it has to be important. It has to be important. Yeah. Before you submit your application, please be sure that you have checked all the eligibility criteria. Chevening's website is the most extensive and most informative website I've ever seen. So please do not bother, to go to different YouTube channels or different websites. I mean, you can go, but on a later stage. First and foremost, go to the website. They have a section called news and blogs. Okay, news and blog section. On the top bar, you'll see news and blogs. Just go to the section, select the filter applicant. There are many blogs which have been written by previous alumni or even Chevening office, which mentions on the approach for essays. What are the common mistakes which applicant do? What are the, how exactly you can stand out from other applicants? So my suggestion, and that has been my approach also, please go to the website. It's very informative. So spend a week or so on reading the blogs, understanding. See, it is just like any other examination. The moment you understand the structure of it, the moment you understand what exactly they have been looking into, what is their focus area, what exactly do they want, I feel you can crack it. That has been my approach. I missed one thing. I'll just go back to the slide. When you talk about your career plan, remember to look into the work UK has been doing in your country, that is India. Okay, UK has been investing hugely in different domains. For example, my area of study is social policy, so there are many policies and schemes in partnership with the Indian government that UK is working on. So you can mention that also, that this is what this shows that you have researched well. So when you write about career plan, please know about a few schemes or few policies in line with your course, in line with your course, in line with the future goal, which shows that you have researched well. Yeah. Yeah. Before, check the FAQs and get your answers proofread. Now, when I say get your answers proofread, I do not say that reach out to 10 or 20 people. Don't do that. It actually confuses you a lot. Find 2 or 3 people. My suggestion would be, let's say if you are planning to pursue public policy, find someone who is pursuing public policy in your choice of college or course, and he or she or they have the Chevening scholarship. So intersectionality, you have the course, you have the scholarship, so they know the process well. So they can proofread also, and they can tell you exactly how exactly to frame your answers. Okay, so find someone. So do not go to multiple people. It actually, plays with your mind, and you lose your creativity in the process. Once you have submitted your application, start following up with universities, because, excuse me, sorry. Chevening is a scholarship. It's a different process. For universities, you have to apply separately. For most of the universities start their application process in September. So Oxford starts in September, ends in January. Okay, and January to March. And it's different for LSE. It's a roll-on process. So it's a very different process as compared to scholarship. So please make sure you have to work in 2 different way. I would say first is the scholarship. The second is the college application. So you start applying. Once you have drafted your Chevening essays, you will have a content to write. You can use it as a base for your college SOPs. College applications is a complete different process. I would say you have to write SOPs, and every course has a different requirement. For example, my course required me to submit a few essays, my research article which I have written previously, because it's a more of a research heavy project course. An SOP is important. Again, they asked for my academic references. Okay, so every course has a different requirement. So you have to thoroughly read about the requirement for different universities. So keep following up with them, because you have to submit your offer letter before 14th July. That is inevitable. It cannot be extended. So 14 July se pehle, please get your offer letter for next year. Keep following the updates, check your email. At times, mails might go to spam. So once, let's say, assuming it's February and you're getting emails, start checking your spam. Preparing for the interview. Yeah, so a few days back, we were having a session with Ms. Supriya Chawla. She's head of Chevening India. Please be honest. That's the most important thing. So they asked what exactly something which you look in an applicant when they come for the interview. because all they want to see. So if you have cleared the first round and if you have reached the interview, be rest assured that you have a very good profile. Okay, you have really impressed them. All they want to see is what they are reading and what they are listening from the applicant is same. Okay, so you have to show the same vigor, same passion, what you have written in essays. She mentioned that they read beautiful answers, amazing work people have done, but when it came to the interview, people were not able to deliver it well. They were not unable to justify it well. It might be that they often lied, or maybe that passion was missing. So you have to be very particular about it. When you reach the interview, be very thorough with your answers, what you have written, and talk about it passionately. Revise your essays. That's the most important thing. Briefly talking about the Chevening alumni committee. Also, I think I'll just go back to the essay. I will give a few more inputs into this. This is very important. Um, do not leadership. Let's talk about leadership. When you are talking about leadership, do not immediately jump onto this is what I have done. This is what I have done. Make it personal. Make it like a story that okay, for me this is leadership. This is what has shaped me as a person. Okay. One thing which I have also felt while writing SOPs for universities and even scholarships, in India, we have seen like appreciation is not easily given to us, and scolding and criticism was very easy. So we do not talk good about ourselves very easily. We are shy about it. Okay, so that is really important. Chevening very specifically mentions you have to write I instead of we. What you have done, not the team. Okay, so be very particular. Do not think that I am bragging about it. Be honest, but do not think that do not underplay or downplay yourself. Okay, so in leadership, keep it personal. Networking. Also in networking, you can mention about the positive impact or the positive avenues of being into achieving alumni. A few tips. When you talk about why UK, don't just talk about this is ranked one. That's why I would like to do this. This is ranked two. That don't talk about ranking directly. I would say speak about the components of the course. Just an example. My second choice was comparative social policy. So I looked into a few modules of comparative social policy and then tried to link it with my previous work and said that this can help me bring a different perspective to the class. So you show the panel that you have spent a good amount of time researching your courses. That is really important. Okay, one more thing. Once you have mentioned your courses in your application, okay, so you cannot change it after the interview. Assuming, I'll give my example only. While applying for Chevening, I gave three options. The first option was the EBSIP course, which I'm going to pursue in Oxford. The second was comparative social policy, and the third was development studies at Cambridge. Now, I felt about it, I wrote about it, but eventually what happened, I applied to a few more courses. You have to take your chances. You have to apply to a few more courses apart from the three mentioned. In case, by any chance, if you do not get into any course, or you in the course of time you realize that this course was not good for you, this is not eligible, this is not something what you want, and you go to the interview round, you can justify, you can tell them that, okay, ma'am, this is something which I don't want to do because it feels very theoretical. That's what I did with development studies. I didn't apply to Cambridge because I felt the course was not something which I wanted. Okay. And I justified it and I gave my other option, that was LSE's ISCP course, and they understood. So you can change it during the interview, okay, but not after that. Not advising to give this approach. Research well about your courses, but let's say by any chance one of the courses is not working out for you, you have a chance, but that's only for the interview round. Not a recommended practice, but this is an option. And career plan, I already mentioned. Research about UK's investment in India, UK's policies, UK's projects in India. I mentioned about a project in Bihar where they work for poverty alleviation, and that how it aligns with my long-term goal, the alleviating poverty. So that's how you link UK. So try and understand UK, Chevening, your skill, your course, and how all of this together can bring impact. And that's what they want. Okay. I hope this is the important section, so please focus on it well. Covered this preparing for the interviews. And briefly about the cheerleading community, I feel running since 1984, we have more than 50,000 alumni worldwide. Now, not just alumni, they hold positions of global leadership. So, few presidents of countries are also cheerleading alumni. In India, Minister of Jal Shakti, Mr. Nupriya Patel, Mr. Shekhawat, Amitabh Kant, the CEO of Niti Aayog, and few more. They're all achieving alumni. So I'm just telling you that the scale and the prestige it comes along. Once you are part of the cheerleading network, and also once you are in UK, you'll be having multiple sessions, multiple networking sessions where you meet fellow cheerleaders, where you meet cheerleading alumni, and also as I mentioned, the global leaders. You have the Alumni Connect, basic information you'll find on the website also. Few other scholarships. Before I get into that, I hope I'm not missing out on anything. Yeah. Okay, that's it. Other scholarships, you want to take a screenshot, you can take it, you can send that PPT also. British Council has multiple scholarships. Charles Wallace is another scholarship for part-time cheerleading. Commonwealth, great scholarship. INLAX is again from India. Felix, best way. So these are external scholarships, and these are not only limited to this. You can find a few more once you research. People can reach out to me on my email address. I am trying to compile a list of scholarship, and I'll give it to people who want it. College specific scholarship. Again, when you are applying to the universities, please be very careful with their deadline. When exactly is the deadline getting over? Because for example, Oxford. Oxford's different course have different deadlines. For example, my course had January deadline and March deadline. Usually the first deadline is for the internal scholarship of Oxford. So for example, if you have applied to Oxford, or let's for the choice of your course at Oxford before January 22nd or 21st, they mention it, you are eligible for their internal scholarships, which can be WHT, that is Weidenfeld Hoffman Trust. It's an internal scholarship by Oxford University. Okay, Felix is again internal scholarship. There's an Islamic scholarship of Oxford also. So when you apply to Oxford, or when you apply to Cambridge also, you'll have a list of internal scholarship. Some scholarship need a separate essay, some and some don't. Okay, WHT requires it. Islamic scholarship requires it. Gates Cambridge is another scholarship by Cambridge University. So all these information about the internal scholarship of university you'll find on the fees and funding section of the college. Okay, so go back tonight, search for the course you want to do. Once you have finalized the course, assuming public policy in Oxford, LSE, and UCL, go to the Oxford website, go to fees and funding section. You'll have a list of internal as well as external scholarship. Start writing their application deadline, the requirements and everything on one Excel sheet, and keep a track of it. Okay, similarly for LSE, similarly for UCL. So every university has some internal scholarships meant for the international students. So please go through it very nicely. It's really important. And deadline, please don't miss the deadline. People often miss out on it, and then they're not eligible for the scholarship. Yeah, so in case you have any query, feel free to reach out. This is my email address, and I am also available on LinkedIn. My name is Manzar. And yeah, this beautiful code, because before I end, just a small line that I have even mentioned a few days back that I do not come from that league of gold medalists, as you know. So if you think this is only for academically brilliant people, only if you have nine grades or 90s percentile, that's not the only thing that what they need, that what they seek. I have been an average student all my life, be it boards 75, 77, 7.2, 7.8. So I have been an average student, but I mean, by God's grace, by Almighty's grace and blessings of, and I have been with amazing people, be my colleagues, be my friends, my family, and blessing of Allah, obviously. And here I am. So don't think that all they seek is academic brilliance. Okay, not saying that people who are academically good, you are not. I mean, obviously you are a step ahead, but this should not stop you from applying. This should not stop you from dreaming. That's what I feel. And that's how I was able to crack Oxford, LSE, and IDS. That's my three choices. So please do not stop dreaming and stop believing in yourself. You can try your best. All the best. If anybody needs any help, I'll try my best in my best of my capacity to support. All the best for your applications. Yeah, thank you so much. We can have question and answers. I hope that was clear. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Manzar. It was the very informative session that you have taken. Thank you so much for that. Before going ahead, I would request all the attendees to put their questions in the Q&A. We already have some coming now, but I would request everyone to start putting their Q&A in the Q&A section that we have. Before moving towards the Q&A, I would like to quickly summarize what Manzar has walked us through. He has spoken about what exactly is the Chevening scholarship, what is included in that, what is the eligibility, what is the process, what is the timeline. And I would say the best thing, he has also mentioned about his own experience and what all thing is important. I guess that is the most important thing that he has mentioned, like how he has cracked up the interviews and how he has taken this scholarship. So thank you so much, Manzar, for that. Thank you for sharing all the resources and for also mentioning other scholarships for references. Going ahead, I'll start taking the Q&A that we are getting. So the very first question is from Deepa. So Deepa is asking, do the timeline for university applications and Chevening application coincide at any point? Is it necessary to have university offer letter in hand while applying for the Chevening scholarship, or is it an ongoing application process at the university sufficient?
Right. No, you don't. Firstly, you don't need to have the offer letter while applying. Okay. So when you apply now, you just need to mention the courses and the colleges you would like to pursue. So just mention that offer letter, the deadline is in July. So in case you get it before July next year, you can upload it, but you don't need to have it now. The process starts in September for most of the colleges. So by the time you'll be ready to apply for Chevening, you'll be ready with your content and the process would have begun for the university. So September, October, they start the process. So yeah, by November, the deadline for Chevening ends, and also you are ready to submit for the universities also. So keep an eye on it. September is the time for the university applications.
Thank you. I'll go to the next question. So Charvi is asking, this question is out of the topic. Charvi, I think we cannot take this, but I'll just mention this to you, Manzar. She's asking, can you also mention scholarship for colleges in US? I guess this is out of the topic and you can completely skip this.
I mean, I know Fulbright is the only scholarship I'm aware of. Aga Khan Foundation has a scholarship. Usually they were giving it to UK also, but they're not giving it now. So Ford has a scholarship. So Fulbright, Aga Khan Foundation, and Ford Foundation. This is all I know as of now. But yeah, really sorry, not for the.
So Masira is asking, can she apply for different diploma or professional courses after 12th? I guess she's specifically asking with respect to UK study.
I'm sorry, I'm not much aware of. I mean, you can apply to UK. Okay, yeah. So recently they had some results declared for the bachelor's in bachelor studies. So yes, you can apply. But since my entire application was focused on masters, I'm not much aware of bachelor's or diploma courses in the UK. But there's a possibility. Yes, you can apply. They have a test also. I'm not sure about the test. I'm really sorry for the bachelor's, but yes, you can apply. And a few days back only, there were some A test results which were declared. That's what I was reading on different social media handles. But you can research thoroughly, and yes, you can apply.
Okay. So the next question is from Pareen. She's asking, is it necessary to be involved with a single or a particular organization for 2 years, or is it okay if we have multiple experience with multiple organizations for 2 years?
Works. Multiple organization, single organization, as long as you have 2 years of experience, it works. So don't worry about that. It can be multiple as long as you can justify and what work you have done.
Okay, so we have a next question. The question is, since Chevening is the most competitive scholarship, if you had to choose between the 4 essays area you mentioned, which is the one that holds the power of selection rejection over the other 3 areas?
There's no official data as such on which is, honestly, every question is important. That's why they have mentioned it. Every question should be clear about your vision. So please do not go with this approach that I'll put more focus on why UK answer or why or my career plan. It's just that every story connects, every essay connects with the next one. So my suggestion, please do not go with this approach that this is an important one. Every question is important. That's why they have placed it there. So give enough attention to every question. Why I emphasize on the third choice, because that's what you're mentioning there, and that's what you'll be, striving for in the next coming 3-4 months, the courses. So that is why that was important. And again, as mentioned, the third and fourth essay usually connect your career choices, your choice of course, and your career plan. They connect. So every essay is important. So go with the same vigor, the same approach to every answer.
Thank you. So the next question is about, do we have any course on MSc in nursing? And do you have any detail, if you can provide any kind of detail on that?
I would suggest there is. I read a few months back. There was some scholar. As I mentioned, on the you simply Google Chevening eligible courses. Simply, okay. The link will come. You just type nursing. They have a very extensive list. So once you have finalized the course, go to the Chevening website, look for the eligible courses, and they have written very well what all courses are eligible. Also, in case your course is not in the list, you have an option of writing to the Chevening, and they will include that. That's what even Supriya said a few days back, that they have done it in past. Few students have identified courses and they realize that it is not in the list, and they mentioned to the Chevening and they added it to the list. So don't worry about that. Decide the course and just look it on the website of Chevening. Is it eligible or not? And then you can apply for it. I'm sure nursing is there. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, so I would club 2 questions together. It's on both are on essays. So the first one is, in the essay section of Chevening scholarship, would you suggest to sticking to one theme in each essay, or should we touch base on various instances in each questions? What do you suggest? And the second question is it compulsory to use the STAR method in the essays?
Okay, going with the STAR one, preferably yes. Use the STAR approach, prefer it. The second answer, try not repeating the same example. For example, let's say you talk about, you have, let's say you have worked on COVID relief. So don't mention COVID relief in networking also, in leadership also. Try giving different examples. Show them that you have worked, not that you mentioned 5 to 10 examples in one essay, but whatever you have written in the leadership, try not to repeat it in the networking one. This has been my personal observation. I mean, people can differ with their approach, but this is what I feel is a better one. Do not repeat your examples in every essay.
Okay. So the next question is around the scoring in the university application. So the question is, many universities in the country still follow the age-old marking pattern where scoring a first division is a big deal. How does one go around it during university application where a 70% is the minimum ask?
Just letting you know, I know people at Oxford, not that this is something I'm encouraging, that who have done amazing work, and their academics were decent. I would say decent, like it ranges from, because in DU also, in DU they don't get good scores. 70 is the maximum. Even I have studied it in university, so that's not mandatory everywhere. If you have done good work apart from your apart from your academic field, it can be considered. And also, if you get Chevening, it also sets you apart. But the thing is, try mentioning about your extracurricular as much as possible. The way you have not just limited yourself to the studies and you have engaged with the larger society as a whole. So if you can mention all of it in your SOPs, that will be really helpful. So marks, I know at some point at Cambridge, I feel one of the course demanded that one of the scholarships said that you need to be in top 3 or top 4. Obviously, if that's not so, if they have specifically mentioned that this is something they want, then it's fine. But if they just say that you have to be academically sound, so don't think you should not apply for it just because you are in 70s or 60s. Apply for it. There's no harm. And also, I really missed out. I'm really sorry. Most of the courses do not need GRE in the UK. I hope people are aware of it. Most of the courses, there are few courses which require GRE, so that you have to give separately. But most of the courses do not ask for GRE. Even IELTS, you have to give only after you have received your offer. I think one of the question came for unconditional offer. So once you ask that, I'll answer that in detail. So yeah, apply for it. Don't worry.
Okay. So the next question is LELTS score necessary for applying for scholarship?
So yeah, answering to that, no. Initially, it was 2 years back. Now they have removed the deadline, removed the condition. You don't need to apply to IELTS. You don't need to have IELTS score for the scholarship. It's only required by the university. Now, few universities have IELTS as a requirement, like Cambridge, Oxford, LSE. But universities like IDS, it comes under Sussex University. So they do not. So if you have studied from boards, CBSE board in India, and you had English as a language in 12th or 10th, they give waiver to that. So don't worry about it. Also, do not apply for IELTS right now. Do not apply for it. Apply only when you have received an offer from the university. It will be a conditional offer. You have to justify your and you have to give the IELTS score to make it unconditional. And if they ask for a few more requirements like submit your transcript or degrees, that can be other condition. So do not apply for IELTS now because it's not cheap. It's 14,000 rupees. It's 13,000 rupees. So do not apply for it now. Once you have got the offer, then you can apply sit for IELTS.
Okay, so moving ahead. So the next question is, you mentioned about the unconditional offer. So can you shed some more light on that?
Yeah.
What exactly do you mean by that?
Okay. So when you apply to universities, some universities ask you to, for example, if you have given already IELTS score is there with you and you have all the conditions met. Now, when they talk about conditions, they mean you have to give your SOP, your academic transcripts, your reference letter, everything. Now, some of these are non-negotiable in the first round. For example, SOP has to be submitted. Your scores has to be submitted at that point of time. Now, transcript or maybe degree or maybe your IELTS score, it can be submitted later. So they will issue you a conditional offer saying that, okay, Mr. Manzar, this is a conditional offer. You have met our academic condition. Now you need to justify with your IELTS score or maybe submit a degree from your previous university. So that is something which they put as a condition. Then when I apply, then I submit my documents, and once they verified it, they convert it into unconditional offer letter. So Chevening wants an unconditional offer before 14th of July, not a conditional one. So you have met all your academic conditions. That is, you have got the offer letter, you have submitted your IELTS score, you have submitted your, or even if you got the waiver also. Some universities give waiver for English language requirement. If you are applying to Oxford, Oxford has this rule that if you have passed out 2 years back at the time of application, so example, if somebody is passing out this year and applying to Oxford next year, they are not, obliged to give the IELTS test. They can ask for an exemption, they can ask for a waiver. They have this condition. Some universities are okay with the CBSE scorecard. For example, IITS, Sussex. Some universities accept Duolingo English test also. It's comparatively easier and it's not costly also. It costs only 5,000 rupees. So that also can be tried. So for English requirement, there are multiple ways of addressing it. Depends on the requirement of college. So once you submit that requirement, you get the unconditional offer letter. So that is what Chevening wants.
Okay, so going to next question. The next question is, do the applicant have to apply to the university first, or is it the scholarship?
Scholarship first. I mean, if the application is open for the university now, which I highly doubt. But I would recommend put all your energies towards evening right now. Don't, I mean, you can explore, you can research on your universities, but it should be evening first in parallel to the universities, or evening then universities. So evening, any evening.
So I'm clubbing two questions. So one of the question is, will the internship I did as a part of my course curriculum count as work experience? And the other question is, how many hours of work experience is mandatory for achievement?
Okay. I think it's 2400 hours. Can I just check us? I mean, you can check on the website. I think it's 2400 hours. But yes, internship as part of your curriculum counts. I did it. I did my field work for 2 3 months. For 1 month, I mentioned it. That also counts. But just a moment. I have a presentation. Meanwhile, you can ask the next question. I'll just try and see the exact date.
Okay, so the next question is, can a final year law student is eligible for application whose degree will finish in Jan 2022?
2022, yes. For the achieving scholarship, yes, you are eligible. You should be having a degree before, I would say, the next year. Yes, you are eligible. You can apply for it. There were students who have just passed out and they applied for it.
Okay. So
Just
the next,
in
yes.
which year is the person passing out?
2022.
That's coming January, right? And
Yes.
Okay, I'm not sure on this because college is eligible. Evening, I doubt because you'll have to mention it in the application that when did you pass out. So that can be doubtful. For college, you can apply because college can ask, but that is really doubtful. You will have to check. I'm pretty sure it's not eligible. I'm really sorry, but please check once.
Okay. So next question is, can we apply for certification courses under Achieving Scholarship?
No, no, you can't.
Okay. So next question is, do we have to summarize everything which includes about the leadership networking, about career plans, why UK has to be in 500 words altogether? So is it individual topic 500 words or altogether?
Yes, there are 4 different essays. There are 4 different answers. Every answer, leadership needs to be answered in 500 words. Similarly for networking, why UK and your career plan. So there are 4 different questions.
Okay. Next question is, I want to pursue masters in public policy after 2 to 3 years. I have been working in IT sector from last 3 years and now I am doing Gandhi Fellowship. How can I build my profile to make it up for such prestigious scholarship?
Okay. Okay. Even I was an engineer. I was working as an engineer with Wipro. Then I moved into development sector. I would suggest one thing. While you're working as a fellow with Gandhi, try keeping your notes handy. This is something. So in the field of social work, we are advised to keep a field diary, field notes. It's really helpful for your SOP because then you can recollect your experiences, what has shaped you as a person. Then you can mention it over there. How to build a profile? See, if you're talking about public policy, they look into the way you have engaged with the public, that is the society as a whole, and what exactly has been your understanding of policies shaping them, shaping society as a whole or shaping individuals. So if you are planning to pursue public policy, my suggestion would be try engaging more and more in the domain of intervention, or I would say policy making, policy designing, work with few government agencies if possible. It really gives you a good insight of policy making. So after Gandhi Fellowship, it's a very good fellowship. You can try for a few government organization, be it state livelihood mission, be it Niti Aayog can be a good place because it actually gives you a good brand name also. So that is something where you can try. But there are many state-led state-led organization which are working in the field of policy where you can get a good exposure also. That can be my suggestion. But for policy, please make sure you keep your field diaries very handy. It's really helpful when you apply for the scholarship as well as the university applications.
Thank you. So the next question is about how do we select an appropriate university? So when someone is wanting to apply for a university in UK, what is the ranking pattern and how we can identify the top ranking universities?
Okay. So there are two ways. I mean, there are two reasons largely, in my opinion, why people apply to universities abroad. One is you feel there's a need of networking, a bit of exposure, or maybe some skill to upgrade, or maybe you just want a good brand name. So, and both of it is right. Um, Ranking wise, there's a so you can go to QS ranking. You can select your subject. For example, if I'm going for social policy, there's a filter of different subjects. Social policy can be selected, public policy, health administration, engineering. So you can select that filter. You can select the country filter. You can put it as UK, and then you get a list of universities. So that is how you can apply for it. But be very sure that why exactly you want to pursue this course. If you just mention this is because ranked one, as I mentioned, that's not going to be convincing enough. So please be very particular about syncing your past experience, your past education with your future course in the UK.
So you mentioned about the references that might be required. So talking about that, can you let us know if it should be from one of the manager or direct team member would also work? Also, if we recently moved to a new role under new manager, can the reference be from the previous manager as well work? So how does that work?
If you have moved to a new role, I would say the person is not in a capacity to talk more about your capability or your abilities. Okay. So try getting it from someone who shares a good relation with you. In case of my reference, my referee, I mean, he was my boss, and we still share good relations. So that is why it was important. The person, because you'll be writing multiple drafts to him or her, they should be in a position that they can write. If you write and they sign it. So my suggestion would be, please get it from someone who knows you well. Even if you have moved to a different role and the manager works somewhere else, you can approach. That's not a problem. But the person should know you. I mean, he can vouch for you. That is the priority here, because they can call at times. They can call the referees, and if the referee is not in a good mood and says, "Okay, I don't know this person," then this is not a good sign. So yeah, please be very selective about that.
Okay. So the next question is, I'm clubbing two questions. So it asks like after completing the scholarship or after 2 years, is it compulsory that one has to return back to their respective country? What if somebody finds a placement or get a job in some organization in UK? Is that, first of all, is that valid or is that possible? And second thing, if someone gets the job, can they stay back in UK?
You can't. Trust me, even I want to, but you can't. You have to come back. It's a government-funded scholarship. They want you to be in India, in your host country for 15 months. So you have to come back. Else you'll have to pay the amount of funding that they're giving it to you. That's huge. You don't want to do that. So yeah, as much as you and I want to stay there after studying, we can't. After 1.5 or 2 years, you can apply again. Then you can go.
Okay. So the next question is, why did you choose to study in UK and not in USA or any other country in that per se? Is there an academic reason for this, or is that your personal choice?
My master's at this was really beautiful and I would say really amazing. Okay, so I was not very keen on pursuing another master's for 2 years. Okay, I mean, I had no regrets from my previous masters. The only reason for going to UK because a 1 year course. It really integrates you real quick into the sector again. So you just have to study for a year, you get exposure, you get a good branding, you get good learning, and then you come back soon. So my idea of pursuing masters was something which can reintegrate me in my domain very quickly. That's why I wanted to go for 1 year course. So that's only applicable in the UK. Also, the scholarships I felt were more easily available in the United Kingdom as compared to any other country. And again, be very clear about, are you going for the course or the college or just for it. So the course which I wanted, that's evidence-based approach, I didn't find it in India also. And it was either taught in MIT or not even in Harvard. So Oxford had this course. So I was particular about pursuing this course. That's why I decided to go with the UK. And obviously the previous reason, just 1 year, you get back to the sector again and you work again.
Okay.
And you don't
So,
need GRE.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I am getting those questions.
Yes.
So yeah. So the next is with respect to the work experience. So this is how someone can prove the 2 years of work experience. Of course, do they need to submit any document? What are the valid documents? And the second question around the same point is, like, if someone has worked for 2 years but not in continuation, will it be counted? I guess we have already answered this. So I'm a MSW student, so the field work we do isn't for a period of more than a month or two. So will it be considered? So since it's a 1 or 2 month of job and there are multiple jobs of such kind, will it be considered?
What was the first part? I'm sorry. Second part was, yes, it will be considered. You, even if you had breaks in between, you can continue. No worry. You can mention it. I was a student at this, so my fieldwork was, one was concurrent fieldwork, one was month-long fieldwork. So I mentioned all of it. How do they calculate? So you mentioned the number of hours, and then automatic calculator comes. So you just mentioned I worked for 5 days and 6 hours. They calculate it. For this duration, they calculate it. They have an internal system. The first question was about the proof of certificate. They didn't ask me, proof of I would say work experience or something, but you just mentioned from this duration to this duration I have worked. This is the organization, and this is my total work hours, and that's how they calculate. So they don't ask for any work certificate or experience certificate from the organization I mentioned. But you should be, let's say if they ask. So don't try to add any information which is not, it cannot be justified.
Right. So again, a question around the same topic, which is work experience. Can working for the student union of your college, university, can be counted as voluntary work experience?
It can be. It can be. Yes, you should. I was never part of union as much as I wanted to be, but you should mention it. It can be a voluntary experience.
Okay.
But try not, if you have just been in the union, if you cannot work somewhere else, so try not this being the only experience, and then try to apply next year. So yeah, that's all.
Okay. So do we have any maximum age limit or age criteria for achieving scholarship?
That's the best part. Yeah, there is no age limit. There is no age limit for achieving.
Okay. Someone has again put a question around the essay, like for specifically for this, if someone has to write for a leadership question, so is it necessary to show something big that you have done as a leader, like you have lead a team or something, that's all, or even if a small kind of a leadership job is done? Because in case someone has not done thing as a leader, in that case, how one should write the answer?
See, understand what exactly is leadership is for you, and what exactly it means for others also. So as long as you feel that you're going out of the way, or you taking an initiative or standing up for something, that is leadership for you, please go ahead and write it. So you don't need to, I mean, if you have done something like that, great. But if you have not done something like that, so don't feel that they should not write for it. Even if you have done something going out of your way, which was not part of your regular schedule, which was not part of your regular work, but still you did it, mention it. Something which shows that you took an initiative, something which shows that you went an extra mile for someone. So please not hesitate. Again, as mentioned, you don't need to show the scale of it. It should be the depth that matters. That what is your depth? Okay, where are you coming from? So please go ahead. Don't hesitate.
So, is it important for someone to have a social responsibility aspect or publish research papers as a part of portfolio or resume? Does that impact the candidature? Does that happen?
No, I mean, if you have it, great. If you don't, it's not something which decides your application. I mean, it's good to have it, but if you don't have it, don't worry, don't bother. I never had one. I never wrote an article. Just a research which I did my master's. So I never had one. Luckily, I got one. So don't bother.
You have already touched upon this point, but I'll repeat this question. Maybe you can quickly answer this. Someone is asking that she didn't understand about the reference. How does that work? Is it supposed to be from the one you know, or from the one from whom I came to know about chevening, or is it from someone within my academic or professional circles? Who
No, no,
exactly?
no. Not chevening. If there's a professor who has taught you, who knows about you, who can vouch for your authenticity, your work, go ahead with it. If it's your boss, if it's your colleague, someone with whom you have worked and who can talk about your work culture, the way you have worked in the office, how they have interacted with you, what has appealed them, what made you stand out in the team. So that has to be mentioned, not from someone in the chain. So don't worry about that.
So the next question is, what if someone after bachelor's starts preparing for the various competitive exams, say banking, and that person gets through that examination? Okay. And after a couple of years, if someone wants to pursue a master's course in UK and it has no relevant relationship with your undergraduate coursework or the work, will that be an issue? Is it mandatory to have a relevant experience and the undergraduate course?
See, again, as long as you can justify why you want to do it, what is something that is pushing you to pursue this course? Why, while working in the banking sector, you realize this is something which I have. So this will happen once you start, understanding yourself better, your aspirations, your future goals. So that moment you can justify it well. So I don't think that should be a problem. If you decide to apply for masters even after working in the banking sector for a few years, maybe you can work out in a way that you tell them that while working you realize this is something which was missing. Maybe briefly align it with your work and then apply, or maybe just tell that this is not something I wanted and this is something I would like to pursue this course because this is how I'd like to bring my impact, and my previous work can contribute in this way. So bring a tinge of your work. So do not completely alienate it. Just try to bring something out of it. And I'm sure, see, the entire process of writing an SOP or answers is more or less looking inside yourself only. So you know yourself better, you understand yourself better. And that's why it takes multiple drafts to get a final version of your answers. So the moment you'll be writing about it, you will know why exactly you want to do it and how exactly you can use your work experience or education to strengthen your answers or your essays.
Okay. So going to our next question, an anonymous attendee is asking, I have an offer from IDS and SOAS for development studies. However, as I could not secure scholarship, I had to defer my offer for September 2022. Is there any other scholarship I should look into that are given for women or specifically for a Muslim woman? Is there any such scholarship?
Firstly, congratulations for the offer. Both of them are really amazing. Even I was going to IDS. That was my third choice. For women, there's a scholarship, as I mentioned, in STEM. There is for women. So I don't know your course. Did she mention the course? What she's pursuing? Heba?
Sorry.
Did she
Yes,
mention the
yes.
course which she'll be pursuing?
She mentioned, yes, she did. Software development studies.
Development studies.
She mentioned that she's going for development studies. Yes.
Okay. I'm not sure if they have specifically for women aspirants or Muslim women, but STEM has it. So maybe you can try for STEM. As I mentioned the last slide, so there are a few scholarships for STEM. IDS might have some internal scholarships, so please have a look at it. And if there are other scholarships, I would suggest please apply for Commonwealth. Commonwealth has 3 categories: masters, and international, and a shared scholarship. So then you have a lot of chances. So after achieving, start preparing for Commonwealth. Sorry. After Commonwealth, in lakhs will be happening. And as I mentioned, I'll be soon compiling a list of other scholarships. I'll create an Excel sheet and people can reach out to me on email. I'll share it with them soon. So maybe just allow me some time, a week or so. I'll try and researching it and sharing it with you.
Okay. So I have multiple questions around the academic scores. I'll club all of them together. So first of all, is there any minimum cap on GPAs for scholarship in UK? Do we have anything that sort? Or academic, like what is the minimum criteria of having an academic scores for applying for the scholarship?
Chini didn't ask any particular score for academics from in the academics domain. So I don't think Chini has it. Maybe some other scholarships can have. For example, as I mentioned, Cambridge has this Gates Cambridge scholarship. They mentioned very briefly that you have to be in the top 3 or something. But most of the scholarships, they don't ask for academic excellence as such. Like this is the only criteria. Chini didn't ask for us. It was basic. They just asked your score, but there was no cap specified particularly on the website that you have to get this much. So, but yeah, colleges and a few more scholarships or internal scholarship, they can have it. So be careful with that.
Okay. So the next question is around IELTS exam. So here for this exam, when exactly one should appear for it? So say for example, I'll just give you a scenario. If I want to go for the next year 2022, when should I start giving the examination for that? The second question is there any criteria for giving this exam? And okay, that was it. Sorry, that was the 2 questions. I've clubbed together the questions. So one is when one should give the exam, and the second one is there a criteria or a requirement for IELTS exam? Do we have any criteria?
In my suggestion would be don't give it now. Give it somewhere around March, or maybe the moment you get your college offer letter. Okay, so assuming you applied in December to any university, XYZ university, and you hear from them by January or February. That's the usual timeline. And they mention that this is your requirement. You have to submit IELTS, then appear for it. Okay. So after once you apply to universities and you have converted the offer letter, when you have received the offer letter, only then apply for IELTS. Because Chevening doesn't ask you IELTS anymore. It's just the university. So it's better to get the offer letter first and then apply for IELTS. And IELTS score is eligible for 2 years, so you can apply to the different. I mean next year also. There is no requirement as such for IELTS. Just prepare before giving it on. That's obviously understood. So there's no condition or requirement as such before applying for IELTS.
Okay. So the next question is, does the selection panel contact the referee that we have said? So do they contact the that we have given. And can we get a common letter from the referee and use it for all the universities that we are applying?
Okay, firstly, there's no proof that they have contacted, but they, I mean, again, we have heard from few alumni that they did contact just to verify. So my referee, I don't think they contacted mine, but it can be, I mean, out of blue, let's say they want to contact or they want to verify, they can do it if there's something doubtful. So if they feel there's something fishy, they can contact. So be very careful about that. So if you're giving your referee's contact, make sure that they are, available for calls. And once they receive the call, if they receive the call, they should identify you and they speak good about you. So that is something. Can I please get the second question, Hima?
Sorry, do you want me to repeat the question?
The second part.
So the second, just one second. So
Yeah, common
can
letter.
someone have a common letter from the referee and use it for all the universities that we are applying?
You can. I made it custom for everyone, but that's really tiring and it's really cumbersome. So many people, they get a common recommendation letter and they apply to universities with the same letter and to the scholarship also. So yes, you can do that.
Okay. So the next question is, if someone is not able to clear the Chevening in the first attempt, are they eligible for the next year? And does it affect negatively in the future attempts?
No, never. It won't hamper your further processes. So Khuda na khasta, if you are not getting it this year, you can apply next and next and next. It's fine. This year, there's a fellow junior who got it in her third attempt. There are people globally who have received in their fourth, fifth attempt. So they are allowed. They can apply for it again and again. So don't worry about that.
Okay. So from the job perspective, this is a question. So does the 1-year master's from UK valid in India from a job perspective?
It is. Don't worry about it. And if you're getting a scholarship, and I mean, yes, it is valid. Don't worry about that.
So actually we still have lots of questions and I'm trying to get the questions
Okay.
which is not repeated. So
I mean,
sorry.
we were in the same spot last year, so I get the confusion. Please, I'm there. You can ask.
Right. So first of all, I would also like to mention there are lots of thank you notes which are coming for you, Manzar. Thanks a lot for giving this time. People are really appreciating it. We are appreciating it too. And I guess we are like almost over the time, so I'd like to take one last question. So someone is asking, like, I am a student having masters with rural development and management, and I want to be selected for the Chevening scholarship, but I'm confused to select the course. So can you suggest which course I should go for with having the RD background, which is rural development background?
I'm assuming this is from TISS Tuljapur because they have a very good course there in RD. Firstly, I should not be the one suggesting you which course you should pursue, because if you can go into multiple domains, if you want to go into power participation and organization, it's a course in IDS. That is something which you can try. Public policy is a very upcoming domain where people are going for it. It's mostly sought in UK and the States, so you can think of pursuing that course. But there are multiple ways you can go. There is specific studies on maybe rural development, not in the UK. So sorry about it. So I would suggest think about the future. The course, the future plan, what exactly you would like to do in future, and then you'll find the course. But if you have done RD, there's a course in ITS, power, participation, and development. That is one thing. Poverty and development is again a good course in ITS. At Oxford, public policy is a good one. You can apply if you wanted to get into the field of research and domain, you should apply to UCL. UCL has good courses, but again, it's a very personal choice. I don't think I should be the one telling you about the course. So please just write somewhere that what exactly you want to do ahead, what is your vision of your future, and then you'll find courses accordingly. And if you still feel you have some doubt about it, reach out to me. I'll try my best to work out together on this.
So Manzar, I would like to take one more question. This is something the person needs a guidance. Maybe you can just guide him where he can get the correct answer. So I'll read the question. I've completed internship and volunteering hours needed, but that doesn't constitute to 2 full years, but 1.5 years. I'm confused about my eligibility and couldn't get a proper answer to it anywhere. Do you think I'll be eligible as I've completed the required hours, but not 2 years of work experience? How can I navigate through this confusion, and whom should I contact to get a clearer answer?
If you have the hours, you are eligible. Apply for it.
Okay.
You can apply. You should apply for it. It's because they calculate in the hours eventually. I am 200% sure. You mention it because they don't say 2 years, 2 years as such. They look it into the hours. So if you are saying that you have the hours required with you, apply for it. You are eligible.
So we still have few questions left, Manzar, but I guess we are over the time, so I don't want to take your much time. But thank you so much for explaining and going in detail. For all the attendees, please go through the session that Manzar has taken. We are going to upload this on YouTube. It will be available on our social media platform. Please go through this again, because I see there are lots of repetitive questions. So I've ignored them. So please go through the session again. You might definitely get your answers there. Now I would like to ask Amir to give a final thanks note and to continue the session ahead.
Thank you, Hiba. First of all, I would like to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for making this session happen. After that, I would like to thank Mr. Manzar for delivering the session so calmly and answering all the questions so patiently. I would also like to thank all the participants for coming and attending this session. For more for remaining updated on our future sessions, please follow us our page on Instagram and Facebook. Thank you.
Make use of the web talks and webinars arranging by AMP. Subhanaka Rabbi Izzati Amma Yasifun. Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.
So with that, we will end our session. Thank you, everyone. Thanks a lot. Allah Hafiz.
Thank you. Shukriya.